Hello. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time in the middle of a beautiful day, shall I say, to listen to some, really just some ideas that I encountered when Sophie and I, who are performing Saturday, were trying to develop a duet electroacoustic performance piece around this Palestinian folk song. In translation is "O You Who Go to the Mountains." And, you know, I titled this "Composing for Acoustic Guitar, Steel String, and Live Electronics." You know, it's a very kind of formalist kind of title. You know, really the idea that I'm trying to get to, and I put this word designing in for today for two reasons. One is that it's not the way that we decided to approach and kind of create our sounds and our ideas around this performance was really more designing than it was when composing. You know, it's not in a traditional compositional approach in the sense that we're using specific notation and everything is written out. Of course, there should be no surprise to any of you here. We are all of you have different approaches, and many of you here are at the cutting edge of kind of integrating different performance practices inside with different contexts, different ideas, and different ways to make music, right? So you will have to pardon the overly formal title, when really I just want to talk about some interesting sounds I want to make, and also the historical, and the subject matter of this, right? So which is Palestine. So I would be remiss if we didn't spend a little bit of time talking about that and the current situation, and we'll see how we can weave that in. I mean, really, who cares about playing a guitar or thinking about different strategies of timbral manipulation of guitar sounds when people are being murdered? So, so we're going to try to see how we can navigate that particular kind of emotional cross section, right? So the text that we chose for this piece is "O You Who Go to the Mountains, Ya Talayan el Jabal," sort of. And it originates actually from the Palestinian Mandate period, from the British Mandate period of occupation from 1920, that was ratified by the League of Nations in 1922. There are also aspects of the song and the lyrics that also date to the Ottoman occupation, which was a 400-year occupation of Palestine during the Ottoman Empire. You see my clever spelling. So not only does it reveal that this song has relationships to previous historical occupations of Palestine, but also that song, music, speech, pronunciation, dialect, articulation all become vectors of resistance, vectors of change, vectors of interest, in that songs, and all of us who have a folk tradition that we're attached to, no matter where it is, carry history. And the history of those songs is embedded, the history of people are embedded in songs and shared through that. So this one specifically, though, has a very specific approach, because when the British imprisoned Palestinian men, the women would go up to the prison walls, up to the mountains, if you will, and they would sing this song to the prisoners, but they would change some of the endings of the songs, of the words, elongating them, and so that the bilingual British occupiers wouldn't be able to understand the specific way that they were trying to communicate. And often these can contain messages of hope and letting people know that their families are alive, and that they may have just had a child, or about information about that, but also information about the resistance, about who to contact, where they can see. I think that there are many histories of folk songs that do this, right? And I can think of Irish songs and Mexican songs that do this all. That especially when songs founded during revolutionary periods, they carry these kinds of meanings. So the translation of the lyrics is, "O you who go to the mountain, you who light the fire to inform the prisoners of your arrival, I do not want you to wear a cloak, an embroidered Palestinian belt, or new clothes. I want from you, who is in prison, that is my soul and my happiness. I want you, my dear, who is in prison, who is my soul and my happiness. Prison does not last forever." Okay, so I said a little bit about this, but just Sophie and I have a duet, and we perform lots of different styles. We have some kind of experimental EDM stuff. We made a pop track to submit to Eurovision one year, which we were going to try to represent San Marino because we thought that was small and maybe we had a shot. We got invited to an audition that was the next day. We were like, oh, okay, we can't do that. But that was fun. But we also, the main thing we've been doing a lot is playing guitar and voice. Sophie, who introduced me to a lot of Arabic music, and you'll hear her talk tomorrow about her approach to Arabic poetry, learning Arabic, and being able to sing and compose in that context. We play a lot of that music together, where I'm just playing guitar. And it's kind of modern jazz harmony, and so we did even context. So for this program, we decided to do a variation of that with our different electroacoustic systems that we each perform with. So the musical content of the song is kind of a it's a repetitive melody that the lyrics get changed each time you go through every time you go through it. It is it's essentially from a Western perspective, it's C minor, but in Arab music you have pentachords and tetrachords that you can kind of see visible in the page here in the notation, and so you can think of them as units. But I thought I'd just have Sophie. This is a recording of Sophie just singing the melody by herself, so we can get a sense of what that sounds like. Okay. So that is that's a presentation of the melody, so we can kind of get the sound world that we're talking about. So thinking about this and trying to create a concert performance. So what do the melody and the lyrics suggest as themes for our approach? Or specifically, when I'm thinking about this, about making it's not quite an accompaniment, right? It's a collaboration, but for the purposes of my positionality in the duet right here, right? I'm thinking about how I make this guitar plus electronics part flow with with Sophie's voice and electronics, right? So, but I think themes of resistance, Embedded meaning, right? The variation of the lyrics in order to hide messages, to encode messages. And how might I translate those into electroacoustic concepts, right? So resistance is shifting, right? Resistance is not being able to be seen in the way that those with power would like to see you, right? So that's about a shifting, it's about a hiding, it's about a camouflage. It's also, and I think in the context of this song, a song sung by women to family members in prison, you think of a lot of ways about how presence and refusing a specific stereotype of your power is also part of that resistance. And so morphology, shifting, embedded meaning, of course. Beauty is incredibly beautiful. And, you know, the resilience and, you know, one of the amazing characteristics of humans is we continue to produce beauty and art, no matter our context, no matter how brutal a life we might be living in the moment, we are still able to do this, and it's important for us too. Resilience, of course. Memory, buffers and delays. Some of these are quite literal, right? Memory, a buffer of memory is a continuity of generational history. So drones and ideas of sustain and extension. And then collective power, right? So how do we think through, multiple voice and voicing together where you can hear the collective power and those kinds of things. So that leads me to, like, all of those became like ideas that I began to try to kind of conceptualize through the system that I have built and used for many, many years. And they're basically different kinds of modules. Some very straightforward ones like harmonizer. This spectral accumulator, it basically performs an analysis of incoming audio, and then you can either resynthesize it whole or it can stack strong partials of the passage that's happening. So you get a kind of spectral smear effect. Reiterator is kind of a tricked out. Well, it's really a tricked out looper. I mean, kind of, right? It captures a buffer and plays it, but there's playback rate, and then it goes through a delay filter that has a feedback aspect so you can create these kind of really kind of dense textures that slowly morph over time with using the feedback. And there's a couple extra features about randomizing that the delay and the feedback parameters. And you can give a timing to the randomization, you can give a range to the randomization, things like that. And one of the biggest, one of the reasons I built this is because there's this flexible mapping system. It's not what this talk is about, but just to give you some context, there's a flexible mapping system that allows audio analysis parameters to be mapped to any of the effect control or synthesis generation parameters. So you can map anything to anything. And I wrote a dissertation about it if you're interested. So this was the system, right? So it's this huge complex thing that gives me all these ideas around how I can try to represent these ideas electroacoustically, right? And so then there's the guitar itself. So I have this idea about the electroacoustic metaphor that I'm trying to communicate and its density. And then this idea about, well, I'm also playing a guitar, and how do I think about the guitar and the way that it's interacting in that? One of the things I love about this particular guitar that I'm using, it's built from the gypsy jazz model of acoustic guitar. So it's a nylon core steel wrap string. So it has like some of the sustained characteristics of a classical guitar, but with the edge and snap of a acoustic guitar, almost like a flat top. But it's strung like an arch top, where you have a bridge that connects to the tail, and this. So the top has not pressure that is glued on it, but pressure that is the strings pushing into the top. And I use a fairly thick bone plectrum, and each attack creates a p on it. And so that was a piece of the thing that I was trying to capture into the deal. And then I retuned it. Basically, I made it's essentially a variation of a drop C tuning, since we're in the key of C minor, where I dropped the low string all the way to a C below E. So what is that? That's 51 hertz, something like this, 52 hertz. I can't remember. Again, I'm just and the so that C below the low E. The low E is 82 hertz, and so a major third lower. And the guitar was made custom to be a multi-scale, so that the low strings, if they were detuned, would still have enough length to kind of resonate and not sound like rubber bands. And this is an image from one of the first Western available oud method books that has, and you can see, and I'm showing this because you can see the density of note articulation that is very common in the oud, because there's very little sustain, like a guitar. So the way you create energy often is through tremolo picking, essentially. You know, same in flamenco, you have this kind of idea. I mean, these fretted instrument techniques are fairly common across instruments that have kind of characteristic envelopes of decay, like the way fretted string instruments do. Right, okay, so what did I do? So I have a brief excerpt to give like an idea of how I kind of married those all together. Sorry, let's see if we can go back. It wasn't so clear. I probably need, this is just a recording off of iPhone. But in that instance, there was this distortion that comes in. There's the reharmonizer. There's this repeater that is spinning up, that is spinning faster or slower to kind of give this kind of ethereal top to it. And then there's some of the techniques, a little bit of the tremolo technique, and you can hear the low strings. Very short excerpts, but just to give you an idea of where that's going. And what's interesting is as we rehearsed and we worked on this, you know, it was a situation where choices were definitely needed and maybe some restraint and not like having it completely saturated with electro. At the end of the day, this is a song and a story, and art. Concert presentation is kind of deeply in the human to human space, in the kind of the visceral concepts and experience of survival and oppression. So, you know, and like I said, I think it would be, how can I talk about, you know, guitar technique in the context of, you know, of a Palestinian folk song without actually talking about, you know, what's happening in Gaza right now. And so this was from October 7th to September 26th, 41,000 killed. These is from Al Jazeera, and these sources include the Israeli Army, the Red Crescent Society, and the Palestinian Ministry. There are 96,000 injuries. Right? 60% of all residential buildings have been destroyed or damaged significantly. 80% of commercial facilities, 85% of school buildings, 65% of roads. Every hour in the first 6 days of the war, 6 children were killed. Right? So I have children, I'm sure many of you do. They're like, what, 250, 300 students at my son's elementary school, right? And to think that 6 a day would be killed in your own community that's close like that, I mean, how do you even comprehend that? I can't even understand the depth of that kind of suffering. So, I think I'd like to end by reading you a poem by Mahmoud Darwish. This was originally published in the Jerusalem Post. It's called Those Who Pass Between Fleeting Words. Those who pass between fleeting words, take your names with you and go. Rid our time of your hours and go. Steal what you will from the sea's blueness and the sands of memory. Take what pictures you want so as to understand that which you never will. How a stone from our land becomes the ceiling of our sky. Those who pass between fleeting words, from you the sword, from us blood, you steel and fire, from us our flesh, from you yet another tank, from us stones, from you tear gas, from us the rain, above us as above you the sky and air. So take your share of our blood and go. Go to a party and dance, but go. As for us, we must water the flowers of the dead. As for us, we must live as we wish. Those who pass between fleeting words as acrid dust, go where you wish, but don't pass between us like locusts. For we have work to do on our land. We have wheat to grow, watered with our sweat. We have here that which doesn't please you, stones or partridges. So take the past, if you wish, to the market for antiquities, and return the bones of the hopo on a clay platter, if you wish. What we have doesn't please you. We have the future, and we have things to do on our land. Those who pass between fleeting words, toss your illusions in a forgotten pit and be gone. Return the hand of time to the law of the golden calf, or to the music of gunfire. What we have doesn't please you here, so go. What we have, what you don't, the bleeding homeland of a bleeding people, a homeland ready for oblivion or memory. Those who pass between fleeting words, it is time for you to go. Live where you like, but don't live among us. Die where you like, but don't die among us. We have work to do on our land. Here we have the past, we have the rest, the first cry of life, we have the present and the future. Here we have this world, and here also the hereafter. So leave our country, our land, our sea, our wheat, our salt, our wounds, everything, and leave the memories of memory, those who pass between fleeting words. Thank you.